So, hi everyone, thank you very much for watching or listening. Liam Hartree here with another episode of Presenting Champions. Today, joined by an absolute living legend in the bare knuckle world. It is Scott Midgley today joining us. Very, very honoured to have him on the show. As many people will know, as I mentioned before, absolute living legend of the bare knuckle world. Over 40 bare knuckle fights, won titles at all different weights: middleweight, super middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight, as well as a Legends belt as well. He's been in there, fought some of the very best in the game. He's an absolute pioneer, which also needs mentioning as well. Took part in the first sanctioned world title bare knuckle fight in over 100 years against Billy Martin as well. So today we're going to be having a chat about Scott's life, his career, his fights, his past, present and future. Book coming out soon as well. So before we get into all that though, champ, let me just say big thank you for coming on, and I really appreciate your time, mate. Cheers for that.
Absolutely no problem, buddy. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So that's enough of me talking about you in third person, but I just wanted to give a few highlights there about everything you've accomplished. Starting at the beginning, obviously you mentioned to me when we were setting this up that you've got a book coming out about your life. Talk to us a little bit about, where that's at and what's going to be happening with that side of things, please.
The book's still not finished yet. We've still got a little bit where to go. I think I kind of started it probably 3 years ago. And obviously lockdown happened and give me more time to sit down and, edit it a little bit more, add more stories to it, find other people from my past, to obviously do a few chapters here and there. Like I say, a few years ago, just everyone used to ask, because my life's just not all about the bare knuckle side. I live in a very fast, exciting life, no matter what. Obviously, I was in army. I've done a lot of crazy stuff in my life, and they wanted to know more about that, not just the violent side, not just the fighting side, because there's more to it than that. Obviously, I'm a family man myself, and most people wanted to know about me personally. And the more I spoke to people, the more it intrigued them. They're like, "Oh, wow, you need to bring a book out. You need to bring a book out." And I used to laugh about it, to be honest, thinking no one wants to read about little old me. But the more books that started coming out there, I thought my life's well more exciting than theirs. It's a fast-paced, life, and I thought, something, let's do it. Even if it, I'm not in it to make money or all like that. I couldn't really give a crap about that. It's more about just getting my name out there, and just building my own legacy, really.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I think it's very, very exciting. I'll definitely be getting a copy when it's out there. And just for all our viewers and listeners, keep an eye out for that, because it sounds like it's not going to be long now coming out. So obviously we'll talk a bit about the fighting today. We'll touch on some other stuff, some deeper stuff, as you mentioned there, because I'm glad you said that, because that's something I like to do with these as well. With these talks. Going back in time, I'm thinking of starting from the beginning. I don't always start from the beginning with these, but in your case, starting from pretty much from the beginning. Talk to us a little bit about where your life started, where you grew up, a little bit about what your upbringing was like, and to the point where you first started getting involved in bare knuckle boxing. Obviously, when it wasn't really the sport that it is now, because obviously now it's massive, it's all around the world. Yeah. You were in it, it wasn't like that at all. So let's go back in time a little bit and start there.
So my upbringing, I had a really, really good upbringing. I had wonderful parents, but they were together. We all had, until I was in my adult years. So I had a big family, a loving family. I'm not from one of them, bad families who are, abused and stuff like that. I'm actually from a really good family, but we're from a rough estate. We live in Bradford. We live in an estate called Buttershaw. So my whole life I was a bit of a rascal, just a little bit of a scallywag, always getting in trouble, but not too serious. I was just, like I say, just a little lad's lad. And that's how it started from there. Oh, on our estate, we always fight no matter what. Everyone wants to be the toughest kid on the estate. Everyone wants to be the toughest kid on block. And I was no exception to that. But again, I want an absolute divvy. I want an idiot, and I want a nasty kid. I was raised by a good, loving family who brought me up on morals. So my upbringing was quite a decent one, to be honest. Again, like I say, a few bits and bats running at law, but not too serious. The fighting side, obviously, I've always been a fighter. I'm from a big family. I've got a lot of cousins. There's a lot of lads on the estate, so you're always fighting no matter what. Everyone wants to be toughest kid here, toughest kid there. I've got a few handy men in my family who are looked up to, so obviously I want to be kind of like them, and that's how it started, really.
Yeah, so that was the beginning. Okay, very cool. Obviously, as I mentioned, we'll get into some other aspects of your life hopefully shortly, but just kicking it off a little bit with the fighting because you are so well known for that. Jumping into bare knuckle boxing, as I mentioned, at the era, because obviously you've been through the different eras with this, and now it's global and everything like that. But at the time, it was very sort of niche. It was a bit underground. A lot of people didn't know about it, and there was all this stuff going on. So at that time, what was your actual motivation to want to do it? I know you said about the toughness there, but was it sort of, I mean, as a sport, was it sort of to test yourself? Was it sort of just for the fun of it? What initially in the very beginning, what made you want to get into it?
100%, it was to test myself. I'd left the army. I were already always known as a tough lad, always known as a fighter. I'd left the army, and I'd had a daughter, my oldest daughter Casey, and I kind of like mellowed out after army, and there was something always missing from when I left army. But there was this fire inside me, just burning still. But I turned into a family man. I was a dad. I didn't go out drinking anymore, but there was something burning inside me. And I just kind of I felt that people forgot who I was. A few years earlier, I'd walk around and I'd always get respect. Everyone knew who I was. And I just felt like something was missing and the respect had gone anymore because I didn't go out like a divvy in it all the time fighting. So I felt that most people forgot who I was and lost the respect. And I was looking for something to fill that void. I just didn't know what it was. I couldn't get back into boxing because all these kids are too fit. I couldn't go into MMA because I was too old. I'd be 7 years behind all these guys what are doing jiu-jitsu. So I couldn't catch up on the jiu-jitsu side on them. And then, I don't know, I watched a video once. My friend showed me this video and he says, "Oh, you think you're tough?" He goes, "Watch these two." So he showed me his phone and we were watching a fight on YouTube. It were two guys just having a fight. And it looked like they'd had a fight in a pub. I'd later found out that it was James McCrory and Dave Radford. I didn't know these two at the time. And it was their second fight, sorry. And I watched this fight and I watched them two go for 17 minutes solid. I thought, bloody hell, Scott, you think you're hard? He goes, these are proper tough men. And a few months later, everyone's in pub and all talking about, tough guys this and tough guys that. And I pulled out my phone. I went, look, you think I'm tough? You think all those lot of tough ones? Watch these two. And my mate watched the video and he goes, "Oh, I know puts these shows on." I'm like, "What do you mean a show?" I went, "It's just two guys having a fight in a pub." He goes, No. What they do is they find hardest guys from each city. And once every 3 months, once every 6 months, they meet up and they have these things called B-Bad. I'm like, "What are you on about, yo?" And it's just two guys having a fight in a pub. He goes, No. So he put me in contact with a guy who run it, a guy called Andy Topley. So I added him, and this is no word of a lie. He messaged me saying, "I've been looking for you for months." He says, "My friend were in army with you." And there's an old story about me punching a copper's horse when I went on a night out. And he says, "Was that you?" I went, "How do you know?" I went, "Yeah, something like that did happen." He says, would you be interested in getting involved? I says, "I'll tell you what," I went, "I'll come to the next show." I says, "I'll watch it, but yeah, I'm very interested." And that's how it started. I ended up going to one of the shows, watching fights, pulling Andy up after. And the fight I went to, McCrory versus Jason Young. So we watched all that down at Dave Courtney's house, and I pulled Andy up after. I went, "I'm not being funny, mate. I'd knock all these out." And that's how it started. And then obviously I got straight into it.
Yeah, amazing. It's an amazing story, and it's just incredible. How long you've been in the game, and how it's grown as a sport. But yeah, getting jumping in there like that, jumping in there with style. I knock all these fellas out. That's class, you know. And yeah, also shout out as well to those guys you mentioned, James McCurry, Dave Bradford, absolute legends.
Oh yeah, without a doubt they are.
I've had Jimmy on this show, great guy. So shout out to those guys as well. I'd love to have Dave on here one day. We'll see. But anyway, so you mentioned about obviously with this, I'm picking certain things because bear in mind now, I don't want to take away from the book, so I don't want to have. I actually on purpose don't want to have everything in here because I still
Yeah,
want
without
people
yeah.
to read the book, right? But going like with your army days, touching on that a little bit, you mentioned there was a wild story there that you just mentioned just now. Were they quite wild times in the army? I mean,
Absolutely. I can't even explain. I don't even know I'm still alive, honestly. My army days, it needs a book on itself on that, honestly. Some of my old army friends now, they still talk about all stories, what I've done. That horse story, there's a half truth to it. I'll ruin it all for you. So we're on a night out, and I'm pissed out my head, and I'm going through a load of crap, and I'm fighting with everyone. I was based over near Beverley. I was at Leckensfield near Beverley. And we're on a night out in Beverley, and I'm fighting with all these other soldiers, literally everyone. And there were a copper on top of an horse, and it was a female copper, and she was on top of a horse. And she's telling me to go back to barracks. I'm like, don't want to. Anyway, a load of crap happened, and I kept telling her, I said, go away now before I knock your horse out. And she's laughing at me. She went, well, it's an half a ton animal. And this is when I was a real dickhead back then, absolute divvy. Anyway, I swung at the horse, totally missed, swung around in a circle, fell on ground. And because I fell over looking like a dickhead, I got up and I did it hit the horse. And for everyone watching, it looked like I knocked the horse on its ass. I didn't. I hit the horse. It just must have been stunned or whatever it did. And it went and sat back and sat on its ass, which made the copper fall off the horse. So to everyone watching, it looked 10 times worse than what it was. The horse just sat down, as it were walking back. And the copper, she ended up falling off it. So everyone watching, it just looked like I fucking whacked an horse, knocked it on its ass, and copper falling off it. It was not like that, but I just let all the story go. I let everyone imagination run wild with it. And there's actually some of my friends what were down here that were my PTI at the time, who live in Bradford. He were actually there at the time, and he still talks about it now.
Oh, that is class. Fair play. That is something you don't hear every day. Not knocking a horse. I mean, even knocking it over. Like, I mean, that is something.
Yeah, it'll just sat down. It couldn't be asked. That's all it will be. You just got to
like
play with story, don't you? You just got to let it go.
yeah, but I still like the shock of it. There is a story like that about Roberto Duran, isn't there, when he knocked out like a horse or a donkey or
Yeah, he
something like
cracked
that.
it behind the ear or something, didn't he, when we were younger?
Yeah, I heard
Yeah, I
that.
won't put myself in his category though.
No, fair play though. That's a hell of a story. And I'm sure there's a lot more in the book. Like I say. So we don't want to take too much away from there. But obviously, going back to the fighting side of things, after you had this first taste of it, and the fight we were just talking about now, you obviously started getting into it. You obviously wanted to go back. You obviously wanted to obviously get in there and do it yourself and progress. So with this, I don't really have a question about like a specific early fight, but just that period of time where you started out, you started getting some success in bare knuckle boxing, and just what your mindset was like, what your life was like at that time. Any stories from those early fights? I know I haven't honed in on one fight here, but more just that time in your life, if you get where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I mean, one of my most important fights of my early career were probably the Aaron Gorn fight. I'd just come in, I was blonde-haired, blue-eyed. No one looked like me at the time. Everyone had scars and bald heads and flat noses, cauliflower ears, and then I walked in with blonde highlights, blue eyes. I was banging everyone out, and I had a fight with a guy called Aaron Gorn. And to be fair, I was supposed to walk through him. I got a little bit cocky. I'd gone out night before, as I always do. We had the fight. I came straight and rushed him. We had a fight, and he knocked me down. We both swung at the same time. I threw a right, he threw a right. He got to me first. And as I was going down, I was still spinning. So, from my right hook. So as he's caught me, I'm still going down and I'm spinning as I'm going down, but my ankle stayed in the same place. And I literally just snapped my ankle. But I didn't know how to snap my ankle at the time. So I stood up and I thought my leg felt like it had pins and needles, in my leg. So If you watch me on video, I'm banging my leg on the canvas, and I'm going to my corner, man. My leg's falling asleep. You know, a bit of a weird time for my leg to fall asleep. So I'm shouting at my corner. I'm going, my leg's fucking falling asleep. I don't know what to do. So I'm banging it. I didn't know at the time. Like, again, my ankle just snapped in half. And I'm walking forward. My legs flopping. It looked like my legs would be on jelly, but I had a snapped ankle, but my boots were so tight that I could still put pressure onto it. And I'm falling, I'm limbering. I went on for another 2 rounds with a broken leg, a broken eye socket, a broken cheekbone, and a broken left hand. I carried on for two more rounds. And I think that got me a little bit more notice for me instead of me just knocking him out. The fact that I was so tough with so many injuries, and I just carried on and carried on and carried on. So after that, I was known as like one of the toughest out there, being able to take punishment. You know, obviously McCrory's up there, you know, as one of the best at taking punishment. And up until this fight, there was no one else what were, you know, talked about. And obviously it got me a little bit famous in that fight for taking punishment.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I tell you something, some of the things in bare knuckle boxing that you guys have, like in terms of injuries and particularly, you know, broken bones and all that, is just insane. And bear in mind, I've had people on here from like every fight sport you can do, like on this show, you know, and they're all tough in different ways. But I tell you what, like and it's not even a question, but just like that list you just said, broken eye socket, broken cheekbone, broken eye, it's like fucking hell. Like, you know, the fact people keep
That
walking
one fight, yeah.
that sort of stuff, it's just on another level, you know. But still, absolute respect to you for that, and obviously everything in your career. Obviously, one of the things to touch on before we get into some other like sort of title fights and all that sort of stuff is like your mindset to this, because to do this you've got to have a very, very tough body, but to do what you do like in that you've got to have I think you've got to have a very, very tough mind as well, like to keep going, you know, through the pain and through the injuries and all that sort of stuff. So one of the things I think people overlook with fighting is the mental side. They talk about the physical side. Obviously it is a physical thing, but when you're going into a fight like that, how do you sort of feel on a build up to it? Like what are you thinking? Do you think about the fight much, or do you just sort of put it out your mind until you get there? You know, you get the type of thing I'm coming from with this, hopefully.
My mindset's a little bit different these days than when it was when I first started. Like I say, I've been doing this nearly a decade now, and I think I'm a little bit too more relaxed than what I should be. Back in the day, when I was first starting, the first 5 years, I was always angry, always pent up, you know. But that's how the style was back then. It was just pure aggressive street fighting. I know it's evolved now and it's more technical, and the lads what are doing it are absolute athletes. But back then it was just an absolute street fight. You know, if you look at some of the old ones, we'd have sly headbutts. There were all sorts we used to do. So back then, my mindset was I wanted to kill them. You know, as nasty as it sounds, as horrible as that sounds, I absolutely wanted to maul them. So my mindset back then was just pure aggression, absolute violence and aggression. And if you watch all my old fights, that I used to rush out to them and just maul them. My mindset today is a little bit more laid back. I'm more chilled out, which is not good for what I do. You still need to have that sharpness. You still need to have that fire and that hunger, you know, because you are going to get hurt. We're getting hurt with. There's not one as simple as that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it makes sense in a way though, because obviously these days you've got like in that way you haven't got a lot to prove. Or I mean, maybe you have, but like from the outside looking in, obviously with like everything you've won and everything like that, I can sort of see how it would settle out a little bit. You know, we'll get to that in a minute. Because obviously we'll be working through your career. Now this is another thing though. A lot of the best champions I interview and I talk to, or even people I know who are mates of mine when I'm like in their camps or whatever, because obviously I do all of the media as well, all the photos and everything. A lot of them are sort of like you, like they've got the killer instinct, but they've also got like they're like family people, they're like chill people. Like you know, you catch them in the street and they're just, you know, they're actually quite chilled out. But when they go into a fight, they can just turn it on.
Yeah.
And I can see that you've got that killer instinct. Like you can like turn it on. You know, you know, you can sort of see it in your face. But it makes sense. I talk about the mental side because people just overlook it. People are always talking about, you know, this round and this fitness and this side of it. Obviously, that is an important thing, though, is your training, because the sport's changed beyond any recognition. Back then, you could just turn up and have a fight, and I've heard from a lot of these guys like McCrory, obviously Sean George back in the day, loads of guys I've had on here from the earlier days. And they obviously all say the same thing. Back then, you could turn up and fight. Now you have to be fit. You have to be ready. How has your training regime sort of changed over the years, physically, in terms of like what you do to prep for a fight, sparring, road work, any aspect? How's it evolved over your career?
Um, my training regime is I can't do what I used to do years ago now. I ain't got the motivation to be able to go on, 6 week camp, constantly straight from work, or then going out having something to eat, not seeing my family. I can't do that anymore. I really can't. Um, I just ain't got the motivation. I ain't got the hunger to do that. Not like I used to do. So this is why all these young lads now, they're just taking over through fitness. Not they're not tougher, and they're not a better fighter, as in like a natural fighter. They're just more skilled and more fit, and they're more dedicated, and they're absolutely doing it amazing in it. So I take my hats off to them absolutely, because I can't do that anymore. I had the hunger years ago where I could train for 6 weeks. I still could train on their level. Absolutely. The level what they've done now is they've took it to a new game, and they're making people like me, McCrory, Sean George look even better, because the level they're taking it to now, and they're getting so big and so well known. They're making us pioneers look good. Even though we can't hang with them, we can't do their fitness, and we can't train or fight like them, because we're pioneers. We're the original ones now, so they're still talking about us lot, which it's good for me, obviously.
Yeah, it is good. I mean, obviously you paved the way for a lot of these guys, to do what they're doing now, and it's as simple as that. I mean, without you, and obviously only a handful of guys, really. A few we've mentioned, there's a few others, but you guys really paved the way for the sport to become what it is and to become like a global sport. And I think you'll all go down in history for that, and you all deserve to do
Yeah,
so.
when we were doing it, when we started doing it, we didn't think it was going to be as big as what it is. Do you know what I mean?
Mm,
So we weren't thinking about our own legacy. We were only
mm,
doing it at the time for ourselves, to prove something for ourselves, and it was just us. We're doing it for us. We're not doing it for anyone else. We're not doing it for you. We're not doing it for you. We're just doing it for ourselves. So we didn't know that it was going to be this big. If I'd known it was going to be this big, I maybe I'd have done the things different. Maybe chose my fights a little bit more carefully to create me, build my own legacy up. But at the time, it was just for us, just to test ourselves, see what we're made of. So these guys now are absolutely. I take me out to them and I praise them, because they're making us look even better than what we were, because how big the sport is. We're getting talked about. All these pioneers. We're getting talked about it still to this day. So thank you for doing what you're doing now, lads.
yeah. That's it. Shout out to anyone in the sport today. There's some fantastic fighters out there on many levels. Obviously, going back to this a little bit more with yourself. I mean, you've had too many fights to talk about them all. I mean, around 40 bare knuckle fights is it's absolutely crazy. Different titles that we mentioned, when we were setting this up and that I rattled off at the beginning. Do you have one that you're most proud of for any particular reason, or maybe there's more than one? But like particularly in terms of titles now, in terms of like belts you've won and what have you, is there one that really stands out as being like the one for you that you look back and you sort of think that was the one, that was the perfect like the perfect title or anything like
First
that?
one, my first belt what I won for BKB, because it was called UB Bad back then. They've changed the name 3 times. They were B Bad, then UB Bad, and then BKB. So it's all still the same owners, all still the same company, most of the same fighters, but obviously they just changed their names. So the first belt I won when I knocked out Chris Wheeldon. So because it's your first belt, it's your first title. I never dreamed that I'd be a bare knuckle champion. When I first started it, again, I just wanted to test myself. I wanted to see how hard I was compared to the so-called hardest in country. I knew I'm a good fighter. I knew I'm a tough guy. It's all right being tough from where you're from, but you're challenging all other guys in country to see who's the toughest. That's when you can call yourself another tough guy. So my first belt that I won, yeah, I think that means most to me. I could win one next week; it'll still mean a lot to me. But the first one will always mean the most.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that makes total sense. It makes total sense. Yeah, and shout out to Chris as well as another very very tough fighter there. I mean you've been in with them all pretty much. So it's amazing.
I've
That's
been in with
not
the best and the best, yeah.
yeah
So my resume is it's up there. And I think there's probably only Sean George who's got a better resume than me. He's been in there with them all. We've been in with each other. But yeah, I've got a good resume. I've been in with Sweeney, Billy Martin, Sean George, Leeson, Eric. I've been in with them all any big name.
Any good name you've been? Yeah. I know that's amazing in itself. I mean, we say about the titles being amazing, but obviously the caliber of the people you've been in there with is amazing as well. So absolutely incredible. Another thing to touch on, we'll come to the future in a minute because we're sort of working through time here. But in terms of like the environments you would fight in, that's the other thing. I mean, in terms of like you've done a bit of that because obviously you've had them in the ring, you've had them in like these other types of places. Obviously, I know you've had some with Spartan that are obviously it's like in the pit and everything like that.
Yeah.
So that's a different style of combat. It's much more close quarters and everything like this. So in terms of like some places that stick out to you of having like the best energy to fight in. I mean, I know at the end of the day it's only you and the other guy who's in there, but like still, like arenas and places you've been where the stick with you with like the crowd energy being electric or being like whatever it is. What would you say about that side of it? Because you've done it all with that as well.
For me, the smaller the venues, the better. I fought O2, I fought in 3,000-4,000 seat arenas, but it's the small ones for me because you can hear them screaming, and I won't lie, it gives me a buzz. It absolutely goes through my body. The first hay bale ones, what I used to do like nearly 10 years ago, that were in barns. So it was just a barn, and there'd be a load of hay bales. That would be your ring. There'd be one guy in there with you, but the atmosphere, because they're literally screaming feet away from you. Whereas when you're in ring and you're in, arenas, they're good 50, 60 foot away, it's next person to you. Whereas this one, they're literally a couple of feet away. So I love them ones, me personally. They're more my cup of tea. Don't get me wrong, I love walking out on a big stage where there's thousands watching and we're on pay-per-view. I love them. But yeah, it's the smaller ones for me. The hay bale ones were absolutely the brutal. They're more my cup of tea because I'm a close quarter fighter. I like to have a good brawl. I'm not really a technical boxer. There's pretty much every bare knuckle fighter out there is more technical than me. I'm just a brawler. I'm just tough. I hit hard and I can take a good whack.
Yeah. You're one of the toughest out there, so flipping that on its head in terms of toughest fights, because the thing about toughest fights, this comes up in pretty much every interview I do, like whether it's boxing, whether it's MMA, like whatever it is. Obviously, the other bare knuckle guys, and all that. But obviously, a lot of other fighters watch this, but this is also quite a fan-friendly question as well. Toughest fights, right? I mean, you mentioned earlier about breaking like everything you had in the one fight to hand, and it's insane toughness. You're obviously an insanely tough person, not blowing smoke or anything. It's just the way it is. But out of the levels of toughness, is there ones that stand out for you as being like the toughest fights that you've had? Maybe one or two. It's probably more than one. This is going to be.
When I fought Billy Martin, I think that was the first time that I've been hit by someone who hits as hard as me. Because usually before all hay bale fights, when I was just being a dickhead street fighter, my fights would be over in a few, within a few punches. I hit that hard. As soon as I caught anyone clean, I just knock them out. They were all, this is street fighting. Obviously, it's totally different in combat sport. So I was very confident in my own knockout power because I was knocking everyone out, and I've never been knocked out. So I never knew what it was like to be hit by someone who hit as hard as me. And when I fought Billy Martin, if you watch the first knockdown, it don't look like it was a hard punch and it don't look like I'm rocked. But I'm telling you now, I was stunned to my feet. It hit me, and as I'm down, my feet were tingling. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I've never felt this in my life. And then I'm thinking, shit, is this what it's like when I hit people? And I remember getting up and my feet were still a bit tingling. I'm like, wow. I fought on a little bit longer, and every time I brawled, I was a better fighter. But yeah, that first knockdown with Billy Martin gave me, still to this day, one of the hardest I've ever been hit.
Wow, yeah, that is amazing. I mean, fair play to him. He's a hell of a fighter. But when you ask this question, I love asking that question because it's usually not what you expect. You know what I mean? I mean, I've asked this of so many world champions in different sports, and often you think it would be one of their like really well-known fights, one of their world title fights, and often it can be a fight from going way back. And I know that was a world title fight, so it's going to be tough. But still, I mean, it's pretty insane. So moving forward, obviously you've seen a development of the sport, and this question as well is more than just yourself personally and the fights and things like that. In terms of where the sport's going and in terms of the changes you've seen so far, and I know we touched on this a bit earlier. We talked a little bit about this just now with obviously how fit and how ready these guys are now. But still, in terms of the sport, like in the business side, obviously the fact they're obviously broadcasting with the fights, it's taking off around the world. Your view, like the good and the bad of bare knuckle boxing, and how it's changed from like the different eras that you've seen, because obviously you've been in it through everything like to the present day. So yeah, what are some of your thoughts on that? Like some of the good and some of the bad changes, basically.
Well, I'll use BKB as an example. Obviously that's the promotion I originally started with. It's one what got made my name. You know, without them, although I know a few of us don't get on anymore, but that's totally irrelevant. They pretty much got my nickname. They molded me. If you watch how they started from the hay bale days and to what they're doing now, look, they've done amazing. They've done absolutely amazing. They put the sport on the map. They put people like me. We're going down. We're cemented in concrete. Our names are in concrete now forever in the BKB world. You know, it might not mean in 10 years' time where I live, but in the BKB world, my name will always be there now. So it's thanks to companies like that. So they've gone amazing. The bad points is, and this is only from my personal point. Again, I love the intimacy. You know, the small crowds. Everyone knew everyone. You know, they couldn't do that though. If you want to get the sport bigger, you've got to go bigger. You've got to take yourself away from it and just try and create a bigger sport and a bigger company. And they've done that. And it's not really a bad thing, really, is it? Making your company bigger, making the sport bigger. But yeah, the only thing I don't like is it's got too more technical for me. It's just boxers now without gloves. Now I was never a boxer, so someone who's a fighter like me try to go in there and rush and have a proper brawl. I can't really do that anymore with some of these boxers because they just stand back and just jab away and don't let me get close. So that's why someone like me I'm getting extinct. I'm like a dinosaur. You know, the sport's evolving and I'm just still a dinosaur. So I'm going to go extinct. So unless I up my game and learn how to box and get in there and, you know, use different tactics, I won't be able to stay at the top, you know, very long at all. But yeah, I think it's gone amazing. The sport itself's just blown up. America's done what they've done. It's amazing. All these UFC fighters, all these big stars, what they've got. Bare Fist, Bad to Bone, you know, Spartan, they're all doing amazing in their own rights and they're taking the sport to a different level.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's growing and growing and growing, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And you know, it's amazing to see the fighters getting these amazing opportunities. Obviously, in recent times, we've seen some UK lads go over to the States as well, fight over there, and that's starting to happen a little bit. And it's just, you know, it's just getting bigger and bigger, and it's amazing. Which leads me obviously to your future plans as well, because we've talked about some of the toughest fights, we've talked about some of the belts, and you know, there's so much there. I don't know if you can do it, if you can even do it justice in like a short talk like this, which is why I say to everyone, read the book, guys, because you know, I know it's all going to be in there. But in terms of your future plans, and like what you want to do going forward from here, fighting, and obviously eventually after fighting as well, what are your thoughts on that side of things? I mean, what's motivating you now? What's driving you now? What's the future going to hold for you, do you think?
There's not a lot really driving me. Again, I'm a father now. I've got teenage daughters. I've got a baby on the way. And I don't know. I've not got my life's going really good. My life's going really good. And I've not got the fire in my belly anymore. I'm going to have one more fight end of August. And I won't lie, I'm going to go in there and absolutely fight the old style. The old style where I just go in there and I'm giving it everything I've got. I want to, you know, and if this guy's as tough, he's going to fight of his life. And I'll say after that fight, if I've done a good fight, which I really plan to show what bare knuckle fighting is about, you know, what it used to be about. I can't compete with all these slick boxers and go 7 rounds and hardly get touched, or hardly touch them, sorry. I want to get in hay bales or a small ring and just go toe to toe for 10 minutes where we smash each other to bits. That's my kind of fighting. So I'm having one on 27th of August. it could be my last one. I don't know. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, whatever the future holds, obviously, I wish you all the best with it, and I know fans and other fighters everywhere do so. But obviously, there's more to life than fighting, and the fact that your life's going so well in
Yeah.
other areas is wonderful to hear. Because family is the ultimate blessing at the end of the day. Talking a little bit about like some of your life outside of fighting, we'll get to in a moment as well. Just one thought I did have though. I mean, have you ever thought about like doing any other coaching or any other teaching or any of that type of stuff? Because obviously, with the experience that you've had, I know having a killer instinct, you can't teach that, by the way, just to say. But in terms of some of the fighting skills you do have, you can pass those on. That side of things. What's your thoughts on that?
I train a few people now. I've got a few. There's quite a few lads in bare knuckle now. What I've got into it. I had my own boxing gym. I only give it up just after COVID. Obviously, all crap with COVID and that just screwed it all up. But I had my own boxing gym for about 2 years. So I was teaching kids out of there. That's where, I don't know if you noticed it, but do you remember the QFC, Quarantine Fight Club lockdown? Well, that would all run through at my gym. So we're filming all illegal fights at my gym, which we got in trouble for. And I trained and coached quite a lot of fighters, to be honest. So yeah, that's something I'd love to be carrying on doing, even if it's not passing on skills, but passing on knowledge. Look, this is what were good for me. This is what were bad for me. This is what I've learnt works. If you want to do something, maybe just follow this path. So yeah, if I can pass on more knowledge, then that's perfect.
Yeah, that is amazing work. Actually, I didn't know much about that. I'd heard bits and pieces that you passed on some knowledge. I'd heard that from a few lads, but like in terms of the gym and stuff, that is fantastic. Hopefully, you can get some of that up and running again because COVID's just been, it's been
Yeah, well,
absolute.
I went against all rules, to be honest, with COVID. I kept my gym open, which ended up getting me into trouble. I just didn't care. A lot of my friends were going through mental health, and I'm not closing my door to none of my friends. Simple as that. We got £10,000 fines for keeping my gym open, and I just didn't care. I really didn't care. I carried on doing what I was doing. I refused to close it. Absolutely. Please, they were on a side at first, like, look, we know what you're doing in that lot, but you're going a little bit too public, because every Saturday we put a little show on. Darren Moffat were running it. They were doing the QFC and we were doing it at my gym. I'd go there and I'd ref it, or I'd help out lads, train them up and that. And we'd do a little show. We went live every Saturday through lockdown, and police kept raiding us, sometimes halfway through, getting filmed. So we screwed ourselves up there, but I won't closing my doors to lads. Simple as that. They needed it more than what I needed it, so I won't close my door. So I kept my gym open and ended up losing it.
Well, in a way though, I've got a lot of respect for that because I tell you what, so many of the gyms I work with, even down here in my neck of the woods or all over the place, whether it's like with the glove boxing or with anything, like they were losing. Obviously, they had a lot of things with it, a lot of the youth programs. They were getting kids in there off the streets, getting them clean off drugs, getting them out, helping with their mental health, all that stuff. And during the lockdown, a lot of those gyms were closed, and a lot of those kids went back to like what they were doing type of thing,
Yeah, they did.
and people's mental health went absolutely down the toilet with that, and it was quite sad to see. So actually, I totally get where you're coming from, and I got a lot of respect for that because at that time people needed it
They did,
more.
mate. Yeah, and I refused to do it. I told them all. And every time police used to come in and call us and interview us, I just told them straight, I'm not closing my door. If my mate who I know has got mental health and he's saying, look, Scott, I said, I need your key for an hour, he's getting my key. There's no way, I didn't want to wake up next morning and see my friend or someone I knew on news have jumped off a bridge or, topped them. Not a chance. So, no, I just refused. Simple as that. We got a lot of fines, but I've still not paid them.
Uh, that's the way. That's the way. Well, hopefully, you'll be able to do some more of that type of work because I've got a lot of
Yeah,
respect for that. And
I work with other gyms now. I still go around and work with other gyms. And if there's some of my fighter friends, obviously, will need a bit of coaching, that I always go and help. Always go and help out.
yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. When people have got to your level, like to a very high level, and I know you're quite humble about it, but you are a living legend and you have got to that high level. So passing on your knowledge to people, I got absolute all the respect in the world for that. Because people need it, and not just for fighting either, but like people who've sort of been through everything you've been through, you can pass on life lessons as well. Actual things that you can apply to other
Yeah.
areas. I think
Well,
that.
when I had my gym, when it would open before the lockdown, we had social service kids come. So sometimes what they do, they take them swimming. So all social service, they take them swimming for day, or they take them bowling. And one of the lads like, look, let's take it to this, Scott's Gym's down the road. Everyone knows me. I'm very well known. All kids love me. They respect me and look up to me. So that this one social service guy, he used to bring, like 6, 7 kids to gym. These were all kids from bad backgrounds, bad upbringing. They were going on a life where they were going to get locked up themselves, simple as that. And they come to the gym, we'd teach them, we'd talk to them. I'd sit down with me for about 2 hours and just talk to them. No matter what I said, they listened to me. They just sat down. They were like back at school, and they just listened to me. And all I would do is just try to guide them the best way I could into a good life. A couple of them ended up signing up to army and joining army. So just that on its own, that's probably worth more than any belt in the world. Knowing that one guy who one week were getting stabbed in fights, and then comes to gym after a few weeks at gym, then joins army and is now living a good life in army. So if I've saved one person from being locked up, stabbed or shot, then it means more to me than all.
Yeah. I got so much respect for that because people need it. They don't have these role models. They don't have people to guide them anymore. I think that's something in our society that's really been taken out of things.
Yeah.
So when I see fighters doing that, it's amazing. Obviously, with that, we've also got the opportunity with this because it'll have quite a wide reach. If you had to give advice to the same sort of thing, the youngsters who are getting in trouble or doing whatever in this, I know that you're a very easy to find guy. Obviously, you're on social media, people can message you. But if this can reach people who are out of the area that you're in, and it goes a bit further, what would just be one or two things that you would say to them? Like if there's someone listening to this who, they want to sort their life out, or they want to get focused. But whether it's to do with fighting, or whether it's nothing to do with that, and whether it's just to do with, just leading a good life, what would be one or two things you'd say to them, in that situation?
Reach out and talk to people. Anything. Just if you're struggling, reach out and talk. Don't matter who you talk to. Talking is so underrated. If it's something you want to know, and you're too scared, people want to know how to get into this or how to do that, and they don't want to send that message. Who cares? Send it. Just send a message. Try and talk to anyone you can. If you want to try and go down this path, or you want to, how to get into this role, or where do you go about? Just message people. If they ignore it, so what? You didn't talk to them the day before, so you've not missed out. Just do it, because one text message could change your life forever. It could take you down a good path or help you. And if you're struggling, still talk to people. So underrated is talking. I'm one of them. Years ago, you wouldn't be able to get no out of me. I would just sit there. I would a stone. But today, bloody hell, if you listen, I'll sit and talk all day long now.
Yeah, it's good advice. So I mean, it's really good advice, and it sounds simple, but it's such a powerful thing.
It is.
People bottle it up, and they don't get things out of the system. And I used to be more like that as well. And it's just, I think maybe it's a man thing. Maybe it's just, I don't know what
Without a doubt, it is.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, talking is a powerful thing, and it's just, you can feel so much better from just explaining it to someone. They understand. A lot of the problem can get better right there, and then obviously steps from there. It is a very, very powerful lesson. So we've talked a bit about the gym. Is there anything else that we're missing here of like life areas? Because obviously we've talked a lot about the fighting, but is there anything else you're doing, or you're going to be doing that you want to give a mention to before we wrap up with the last couple of questions? I do have one or two more, but is there anything else that people don't know about? And again, I will say, guys, read the book, guys, when it comes out. Read the book, because it's going to be, honestly, it's going to be in there. But because I know obviously I'm not just saying that for no reason. You're a very, very honest guy, so you know that when the book comes out, it's going to be the real deal. It's going to
be the book. It's right. So when I got started with the book, when they asked me to do the book, I was like, no one wants to read about me. I'm just an estate lad who likes to fight. No one wants to read about me. It's not about the fighting. It's about your life. I'm a funny guy. I live a crazy fast life. And so I said, I don't want the book, to be too much about violence. I don't want everyone to know about all street fights I've had and stuff like that. You've had all your tough guy books, you've had your Lenny McLean books, you've had your Roy Shaw books, you've had your tough guy books, you've had your gangster books, you've had your Cray books, you've had your Dave Courtney books of the gangster side. So no matter what I say, I'm always going to be shadowed by everything everyone else has done already. So I thought, I'll tell you what, I'll show you all about me, because my comedy side, my funny side of my life, it's crazier than it all put together. So when you open your book and read it, like, oh, it's not all about violence. It's not all about wannabe gangsters. It's this guy's funny. He just gets into a situation where it just goes crazy. So and that's what the book. That's the life where we're going down my book.
Yeah. That's amazing, though. I mean, to get into like the human side, because you're absolutely right. I mean, when you've read one of those like Lenny McLean's book, I've read that, and when you read one of those, they're great. Don't get me wrong, but when you've read them, you sort of know what it's going to be. And when you've read one, you've sort of read them all, And
Yeah,
that's no disrespect to those guys at all, because they're some fantastic. But I've given like a few of those books I had that I read, like Lenny McLean, that Ultimate Hard Men thing, Kate Craig put together, and all those. I
yeah,
give
yeah,
them
yeah.
a lot of them away. So the fact you're getting into like the human side of it, I got a lot of respect for that, of like who you are, who you are behind the scenes, and everything like that. And that's it sounds like it's going to be a good read,
Yeah,
Um,
you're always going to be shadowed, aren't you, by names like that? I remember when they picked my nickname. So my nickname, Pretty Boy, because the way the picks are, it were piss takes. Like James McCrory used to call me Westlife all the time, and it were always a joke. But all other fighters used to take piss, going, "Who's this fucking boy band reject with his blonde hair and his blue eyes?" So when they picked the nickname Pretty Boy, I turned around and I thought, "You fucking piss taking twats." So I spun it on its head. I says, look, out of respect for Roy Shaw, I can't have that name. I can have 1,000 fights undefeated, and I'll always be in Roy Shaw's shadow. And then fucking Gary Shaw came on, his son, didn't he? And he goes, it was me what picked a name. He goes, you fight like my dad. He goes, but your personality is nothing like my dad. He goes, it'd be an honour for my family if you carry that name. And I'm like, for fuck's sake, I've got to have it now. And it's stuck with me ever since. So you're always going to be overshadowed by the big names, like, the original ones. So you've got to make your own little way. So that's what I've done. I've just been myself. If you don't like my personality, then you just don't like me. I'm never going to win in life. So if you don't like me, that's their problem.
yeah, well, that's it. I mean, life's too short to be anything that you're not. You can, it's the same in that way with myself. I mean, we are who we are, and people can just take it or leave it. I think these people try and sort of change who they are for different people. It just causes unhappiness. In the
Yeah.
end, all the rest of it. But that's cool. I have to ask, when the book comes out, like you say about some of these guys, like obviously the governor, Lenny and Roy, and some of these, and what an honor that is as well to be given his name. Some of these have been adapted into like films or movies, different things like that. If they made a movie about your life, right? Who would you want to play yourself? You know, this is sort of a fun question.
Fucking Chris Hemsworth plays for.
Oh yeah, I can see that. I
Yeah,
can
big
see
good
that.
looking twat. I don't know if they're going to do a movie on me, mate. It'd have to be a TV show. Every week there'd be something different and something different. Honestly, it'd have to be a TV series, not a movie. Honestly, my life's just crazy. Every week something mental, and it's not always bad things. It's just a lot of just weird things. Going on a night out and waking up in another country. I've done that many a times, mate. It's just a normal thing for me.
Yeah. Amazing, yeah. Well, it would make a good, even if it's a series or whatever, it would make a good series, and I definitely think that's possible because there's also with bare knuckle getting bigger. I think there's a movie I've seen advertised with Russell Crowe or something like that's about bare knuckle coming
Yeah,
out.
I've seen some prize fighter thing.
Yeah, and I think that's like going way back, but at the same time, it's still bare knuckle like on a big screen. So it's definitely going in the right direction, and I
Yeah,
definitely
it
think
is.
you could do something like that. But we've talked about a lot, and don't get me wrong, we've barely scratched the surface here, which I knew was sort of going to happen because some people do these really long, these fantastic long form thing, like interviews, like 2 hours or whatever. My audience is more like I try and keep them to about an hour, and obviously with everything you've done in your life, it only scratches the surface. I mean, we
Yeah,
could do that.
yeah. I do the same. I look at some podcasts, what people do, and I just look at the time and go, 3 hours summer. I ain't got 3 hours spare. I ain't got 20 minutes spare half at time.
That's it. I mean, some of them I'd love to watch, like like obviously James English and people like that. They do some really good, really good talks. And obviously Sean Atwood, and I've had people on my show who've been on those. But
Yeah.
I can watch them in like 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there.
Exactly. Same with me. Yeah. When they cram all the best bits together.
Yeah, so that's why I try and keep them, because I find that people, people have usually they can have a spare hour sometimes, even if they watch something before bed or whatever. People can squeeze that in, but like when it gets longer than that, it gets a bit much. So that's why, like today, we've scratched the surface. We've talked about some highlights, hopefully, and obviously, we've driven a bit towards the book. Last thing for me to say is obviously you to give a shout out to your fans and supporters, because at the end of the day, there'll be a lot of other fighters watching this. But in terms of fight fans and people like that who've supported your career, what would you say to them? I just want to give them a shout out, because the sport.
So my fans, when I first started, they blew me away, mate. To be honest, I didn't know they'd like my personality. I thought they'd like these big tough guys who would go around shouting and screaming. That's what everyone loved at the time. So me just being me, I thought they're not going to take it to me. They're going to take piss out of me. But when I first come along scene, they absolutely took to me and they opened me up with arms. And to this day, they still follow me. They still check up on me. They still ask how I'm doing. I'll put a picture up and I'll get 500 likes. I'm like, I don't even know 500 people in my own city. So they've stood by me, and I hope I haven't let them down too much, in my career. I know some say, well, if you'd have trained a little bit harder and took it more serious, you'd have been an absolute legend. Look, we could all look back and say, we should have done this, we should have done that. I was just doing what I did at my time. So I just want to say thank you to everyone, because you've been absolutely amazing. You stood by me for so many years, nearly a decade you stood by me. So I don't think I'm going to appreciate it, because it really has.
Yeah, it's amazing words, and I always give them a mention at the end, because obviously sports is it's nothing without the people who watch and all the rest of it. So and at the end, for the people themselves sending messages and just comments and all that stuff, it all makes a difference to fighters and to people.
Yeah, it does.
Mind fighters, just humans in general. A bit of positivity, it goes a long way. So yeah, I mean, I think people might say what they will, but you're an absolute living legend. Your career has been one of the most exciting like fighting journeys of anyone, and I'm not just saying that. Honestly, it's part of the reason I was so excited to have you on here, because you've always been authentic. You've always been real, and obviously with the fights, you've always like just fought everyone, and that's what's made it so cool. It's not perfect, but it's exciting, and it's been an amazing journey, and that's the way it should be, really. Life's for living. So I just want to say a big thank you for coming on here as well, just to close that out and sharing everything you shared. Hope everyone's enjoyed listening to it. I would love to get into some more stuff, but we've got into some great highlights. So yeah, Champ, thank you for your time, mate.
Thank you very much, buddy. Really appreciate it, mate. Thank you.
Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.